Now we actually want to do is we want to continue with the third in our series of SMA methodologies. And this is part of our offering in the management consulting practice.
Yep.
This methodology is called Positioning to Win. And we've asked Ian Van Son, a case team lead in our management consulting practice, to talk about how we help clients position themselves to win. So over to Ian.
Thank you, AJ. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
We can.
Excellent. So I want to talk today about our CAPTW offering. And we've kind of split it up into a couple parts to talk about here. So first, what the client bought and why, what the client received, and then how the client will use it. So first, what it is, the CAPTW. So it's a disciplined, methodical process and analysis for approaching a competition. So, government defense procurement competition, for example, it examines all sides of the competition. So that's a big part of it, is the process to make sure that you're covering all sides of it. So we've developed a process to look at all aspects, make sure we don't leave any stone unturned. Collaboration with subject matter experts for whatever the area is that's in question, to fill in detail, add color, double check conclusions. So we work together with experts to again make sure that we're getting the full picture. And it's also a very important part of it that we keep it responsive to the client. So we're having regular check-ins to make adjustments, modify focus, make sure that we are best serving them and creating the most value that we can. So why do clients buy it? Why should one do it? So there's a few reasons. A big one is to check for competitive intelligence gaps. Arguably an even bigger one, a reason people do it is to bring in objective opinions, to double check internal thinking. So many cases, I think people have been focused on one competition, just totally immersed in it, focusing on it for an extended period of time. So it helps to bring someone in from the outside that maybe doesn't have the same biases, that isn't sort of stuck within that company's group think or way of looking at the competition, to help double check and make sure you're not missing anything. And finally, there are some unique situations in competitions where it helps to get outside expertise to understand it. So an example is one that I'll walk through a bit here, which we did recently, looking at the Coast Guard's offshore patrol cutter, which was kind of a unique situation. But having said that, I think pretty much all competitions are unique in some way. So that kind of speaks to the applicability of this approach. So there are two parts to the CAPTW: competitive assessment and the price to win. The competitive assessment is an assessment of the customer and the competitors, so doing an analysis of them. And it combines a qualitative analysis, the research, with data that can be gathered around the customer and the competitors to depict the most likely courses of action of the competitors, examines the solutions that the customer will likely, or the competitors will likely bring to this competition based on the customer wants and needs. On the price part of it, the PTW, it's a pricing analysis of the customer competitors, looking at what the customer is looking to spend, what their budget can afford, upper lower threshold, and then looking at the possible solutions of the competitors, what the most likely bids will be that they will bring, so that we can help our client understand the competition, the landscape, and how to best position themselves to win. So in these two parts, executed iteratively, they inform one another and together provide a disciplined, methodical analysis of what it'll take to win. So it helps improve the competitiveness of our client. And there are a number of names or terms that are given to these sort of products, but ours we feel is unique in some respects to what you'll find what competitors might offer. But other names that might be used are deal to win, position to win, but often it's CAPTW. Now, within those two parts, we kind of break it up into 5 modules. So the customer assessment: what are the customer's drivers, needs, wants? What's the environment here? The selection criteria. The competitors: which might involve looking to see who are the likely competitors, who will bid, be capable of bidding and interested, and narrowing down the field. But once those competitors are selected for a closer look, then it'll involve profiling and ranking them according to the solicitation criteria, finding out what their what they're where they're coming from by analyzing the past performance, what solutions they have that they might bring to this competition, and ultimately getting to what sort of strategy they might take. So it's getting inside the competitors' heads through the research and through the data that we can gather to understand how they're going to approach this competition. On the pricing side, there's a top-down and a bottom-up. So the top-down, as I was kind of mentioning before, is looking at the available budget to the customer, how much they're looking to spend, to develop benchmarks, to have an idea for what the bid range is here. And then bottom-up is looking at the competitors and sort of building up from the bottom the price that they will likely that it'll cost them to produce their system. So it's using a pricing model mapped to the coin structure for this competition, and informed by the selection criteria to get an idea of where their bids will be and compare them, informed by the top down. So, and all of these pieces really inform one another and come together in the final piece here, the price to bid analysis, which is where we look at everything. So, what the customer is looking for, what the competitors can bring, the pricing components, and get an idea of ultimately arriving at a recommended bid for our client. And so this is integrating the price and non-price factors. It allows us to do some looking at the competition and the dynamics between the competitors, to do some tweaking, some gaming of scenarios, to maybe try a couple of different scenarios, possible outcomes, to come up with the best advice that we can. But the important sort of takeaway here is that it incorporates all of this, that all of these parts come together. This is just an example project schedule. So where we'll be gathering pricing data throughout, but we'll kind of start with the competitive assessment part, getting the foundations on gathering research and data around the competition, the context, the customer, the competitors, and then bringing that into the pricing to start. Once we've gathered the pricing data, then it kind of feeds into it as we start to use what we learned in the competitive assessment to adjust the pricing as we work towards a final deliverable. So now looking through the parts of what the client receives, these 5 modules. So as I mentioned, one that we recently did was looking at the Coast Guard offshore patrol cutter. And so this was an example of sort of setting the stage for the competition. So the first thing is to understand the competition, the history, and the dynamics of it. So gathering the data on the competition itself. And in this case, what made this situation unique was that there had already been a competition a few years prior, but after the contract was awarded, a hurricane hit, and the awardee asked for significant relief from the government due to the shipyard being really devastated by the hurricane. So then it was decided that they would be awarded a certain number of ships, but then the remainder would be recompeted. And there were also several infusions of relief to the company from the government. So that was that's the kind of the first stage, is understanding the history of the competition and what's going on sort of in the background. Getting to the customer assessment. So this is an idea of what we'll deliver for looking at the customer, and these are just a few selections. So here looking at the context for the customer. So the Coast Guard being in the midst of a massive recapitalization, a lot of different programs, they have a lot on their plate. looking at the sort of the pipeline of the customer. So what other programs they have going on, where they are in those programs, who the companies are that are running those programs. So getting the picture from their side. Doing some research into the acquisitions agency and who's there, kind of what some of the backgrounds and hot buttons, to the extent that that's available or relevant. And then ultimately getting to what is it that the customer wants. So here we're saying the customer's looking for what they didn't get the first time around. So they ran into trouble by awarding to a shipyard that had never worked on a government program before. So it's drilling down to kind of these main points of what the customer is looking for in this competition. And then also bring in sort of larger context from other departments, other stakeholders, who else is interested in here that may have an influence on the decision. So for competitors, we'll do a profile loop for each of them, and it may vary depending on what's relevant for this competition. It could go different ways, but usually there's sort of a snapshot of the company and their operations. Certainly in the case of shipbuilding, the facilities are a large part of that. What they've built before, their past performance, what they're capable of building, whether there's any changes going on in the shipyard, so that there's a lot more that would go into this. But ultimately, what you're driving to once you get through an understanding of them is what's going on with them and how that'll affect their strategy for this competition. Then what we'll wind up with is for all the competitors, looking at the evaluation factors for the competition, and we'll go through it and rank them. And this is just a very high level take on this. So for each of these competitors, there's a whole profile. For each of these evaluation factors, there are sub factors that we go into more detail on. So there's a lot more information that gets rolled up into this, but ultimately you're looking at trying to score them. Thinking of the customer, and this is something that's sometimes hard for clients is to score, when you're scoring the competitors, to make sure you're scoring them as the customer would score them, not as you would score them. They will perform in this competition on the evaluation factors. So then the other part, once you've got the evaluation factors, is the price. So for the top down, as I mentioned before, it's looking at the budget, the available budget, what the customer can spend here. So to create sort of top and bottom limits, to create an envelope for where the bids will have to fall. And that we arrive at this by analyzing budget information, detailed review of the contract, to estimate the holdback. So how much of this budget is going to be for ancillary services and things that are not related to the price that the competitors will be coming up with. So it's kind of stripping away all the other parts out of the budget to drill down to what is the actual budget for the ship construction, because that's what we're going to be estimating in the bottoms up. So in the bottom up, this involves developing a price model. So how a model to spit out ultimately to arrive at the price for the ship in this case, or the solution that they're bringing to the competition, and then assembling the inputs for it. So there's the labor, the material, and then production cost and fee. And so on the right, you can see kind of the way that we build up for the labor and engineering costs. It involves estimating all the overhead costs, et cetera, the fee to arrive at a wrap rate, looking at the different locations, the different labor categories, the number of years over which this will take place. There's a lot of inputs that go into this to arrive at the fully burdened labor rate by labor category for each competitor. Then you have to enter the material costs, fee, to come out with a detailed cost data for the work breakdown structure. In this case, ship by ship cost. And this is kind of a more detailed view of some of how that works. So, labor rates that are gathered, the labor division, what are the different labor categories and roles, and which percentage will be for what level of experience they might have. Those company and facility specific costs, the schedule for the ships, and then putting it into a model that can look at different types of ships, comparable ship types, and how can use these inputs to say to sort of assemble them for how what labor categories and prices will be needed for a ship like this. And ultimately, as I said, sort of arriving at ship by ship cost for the competitors, which you can compare side by side and get an idea for different. And then that's important to do because as many people on this call I'm sure know, the lead ship cost is going to be vastly different from ship 10. And then you can sort of plot them and see lead ship, other ships and kind of highs and lows for the competitor prices. So this brings us to the price to bid where it all comes together. So we've had the pricing components that we were just discussing, the top down, the bottom up. You've got non-pricing, so the evaluation factors that we discussed. Then we also bring in quantified bid strategy factors. So this is taking those strategies that we developed for each competitor, how we think they'll approach the competition, and basically trying to quantify that. So looking at them developing certain factors that we think might influence their bid, and using that just to sort of tweak the price. And I'll come back to this slide, but I'll switch forward quickly to show you what that looks like. So quantifying the bid strategies. So the factors like hunger, how much do they need this win? Financial, are they flexible financially to maybe take a little risk or not? Cost confidence, how confident are they in their price, which influences how much risk they're willing to take. And then so using that to try to quantify what kind of a price they'll be able to come up with. So coming back to here, what we wind up with is combining these. So and you wind up with these two charts here. So on the top one, we've got we're looking across sort of where they might price and how they might score on the non-price factors, those valuation factors. And what sort of a price they'll need to they'll be able to charge given the non-price part. So if you score higher on the non-price, then you can maybe get you may be able to bring ask for a higher price because you've done well on the evaluation factors. But if you're not scoring so well on the evaluation factors, then you're going to have to charge you'll have to lower your price. So it's combining that whole both aspects to have this line on which you're going to have to fall. So plotting the line for the competitors, and then ultimately also for the client. And then on that line, so you'll have your window, your sort of price window, just from the top down where you're going to have to fall. So it's again combining all these factors. So the envelope, the evaluation factors, the bottom up price, which all gives you where you finally wind up. And this one's a little bit chaotic because we did a few different scenarios. But doing other scenarios helps come to a better solution. And then we'll plot where the client should bid, below the others to make sure that they have a bit of a cushion to be successful. Then the other view that we bring to it is using Monte Carlo distributions to look at probability of winning. So this is a different way to sort of visualize it. This is instead of the axes that we had before, now we've got probability of winning on one of the axes. So as your price changes, how does that affect your probability of winning? And you can even get to, as we do here, you can figure out how much, what dollar value of price buys you what amount of a higher probability of winning. So this is a useful way to look at it. You can compare to the competitors to see where you want to, what price you should be bidding if you want to give yourself the best chance of winning. And then then we like to, in addition to that, to the very data intensive charts, kind of we'll distill it down into a couple bullet points to really kind of take away everything that we've done. We try to distill it down into a couple summary findings on this on each competitor. In what scenario is this competitor going to be more competitive? In what scenario, what is their advantage? So we distill it down to a very very high level takeaways to accompany the vast amount of information that we're providing. And finally, how the client will use it. So as I said, this is a real iterative process. The CEA and the PTW inform one another, and they help shape a number of things that will be useful to the client. So the win strategy helps, the research helps us have a better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors. Price to bid. So as we just went over, understanding the price targets for the competitors and where their bid should arrive. And then even, design to cost targets. So looking at the different competitor solutions at bid prices, and you can tweak what the design for your solution to try to arrive at a more competitive cost. So I will I will conclude there, but this was a very quick run through a very in-depth process. But one that I think is very effective for helping our clients.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Ian. Can you go back to the schedule chart for a second? Just wanted to make a point.
Yes.
And so a lot of people, most of our audience members have heard of CAPTW. I just want to point through this slide that, what we think about here is actually considerably broader than just what the traditional view of CAPTW is. And it really goes to one of the key elements of win strategy. And when we get the opportunity to do this comprehensively, we actually then finish this process off with making winning choices approach, which you've heard about as I think it was our first talk. And so, and this is what you've just seen here is a glimpse of kind of all the work that goes into one of these efforts. It is incredibly more sophisticated and impactful than what I've seen coming out of any of our competitors or even the internal organizations of our clients.
Yeah, I mean, the deck that gets put together for these is very comprehensive. It's not just, we're not just giving them an answer. It's this buildup, and they can drill down into each of the assumptions, the details around how we arrived at the recommendations or how we arrived at the summary that we're providing and where they fall relative to their competitors.
Yeah, it's been not just informative, but also very impactful for our clients' decision making on whether to bid, no bid, or exactly kind of very informative to their win strategy of how they're going to actually put their offer forward to win the competition. I think we've gotten, I know, a lot of really positive feedback from clients about the work that our management consulting group has been doing around positioning to win.
Right. I think the key thing with this is getting started early enough that there's runway to actually have this be effective. One of the challenges that we see with a lot of clients is that they're reactive. They wait until they're well into the draft or worse at the RFP, and then they're looking for answers from something that this could provide. And that's where I think for those of you who are working with clients, particularly if you're doing capture work, getting this introduced early in the process it informs a number of things, including the capture plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Ian or John or others, do you have any comments you want to add to this?
I would just add, since we're on this slide, I would emphasize that you see the number of check-ins there. It seems like a lot. It's because it is. We're doing regular check-ins to make sure that which provides opportunities for course correction, but ultimately it keeps us really close to the client, which is where we want to be, having a constant back and forth and discussion around each of these topics as we go along. So it's not just delivering this presentation at the end, but it's the process of getting there that's also of great value.
Yeah, you're right. So the process is the journey, and part of the actual the way it is impactful is actually the journey itself that we take the client through.
Right.
You're absolutely right. There's a question in the chat window, Ian, about FOIA requests and whether or not we use FOIA requests as a part of this process to inform our bottom-up cost analysis.
I like submitting them ourselves. No, I don't think we do.
We don't submit them ourselves. There are third-party law firms and other agents that would do that for you actually pretty effectively. Though the thing with FOIA requests, they actually sometimes take a very long time.
Right.
And so usually FOIA requests, unless the client has already made those requests 6 months in advance of when you need to use the data, it is typically rarely utilized in these types of analysis. When it's available, it's fantastic, but oftentimes it's actually just not available because the request wasn't put in sufficiently early amount of time.
Right. I think what is not apparent or might seem a bit magical about this is that we've run this across a number of different industries. It's not just been shipbuilding. It's not that we've got this unique perspective on only shipbuilding. we've been able to run this on healthcare projects, IT projects, aircraft projects, ship
Services, hardware, the whole bit.
right.
You're right.
And the reason for that, and Ian mentioned it in the presentation, and I wouldn't want this to be missed, is that we actually go out in each one of these cases and we get very specific, sometimes nuanced expertise, including actuarials, occasionally, right?
We have hired dentistry actuaries in the past. Right. You're right.
And the reason for that is what that allows the team to do is really get the right perspective on that particular case. And then there's an ocean, is probably the best way to describe it, of open source data that they distill to get the answers that they provide to clients. It's, I've been in the back, seen how this sausage gets made, and it's incredibly amount of effort that goes into putting something like this together. And, I think Ian said it right. These are just samplings. It doesn't, do the justice, but I will tell you this, it's been now probably 8 years, maybe a little less than that we've been doing this, and it's matured over time. The impact it's had on clients is incredible. It just, there's one thing saying, move the needle. That's kind of almost a trite statement, but I've actually seen the impact this has had on clients' decisions, their win themes, their capture strategies, how they've constructed their proposals. And it is a definite differentiator and helps the client move towards the win. Incredible amount of work that goes into these.
Yep, it is. So thank you, Ian, and to the entire management consulting team. Incredible work, and thank you for a very nice presentation, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.